Hey guys, um, I've been thinking about ways that I can break down some steps that you can use for after death communication if you're not really familiar with how to get started. And some of these are basically just fun little games or habits that you can get into that will help your spiritual growth, which basically does need to happen if you want to have regular communication across the veil with your loved one. This is a spiritual experience. It is not an intellectual experience. The left brain and the right brain control both of these kinds of experiences. The right brain controls the feeling, the heart center, and that's where the spiritual connection comes from. This is a heart connection. It is soul to soul. It is not a left brain intellectual type of connection. You can read all the books you want. You can listen to all the teachers. You can take classes, and they're all great, assuming that you found knowledgeable teachers who are also spiritually awakened themselves. Doing that takes some practice and discernment. You may or may not have good discernment about who to choose as a teacher. That is something you can learn over time. In fact, if you're really good at discernment, that's a psychic gift. So, what I'll say is this: everything I teach you in this group is going to be with the focus and the desired outcome that this improves your life here in the physical realm, first and foremost. And when it does that, it will clear your energy field and help your energy move more freely. And that will strengthen your communication across the veil if your loved one is working with you on that. So I'll give you a couple of tips about what you can do in the first thing in the morning when you wake up to start your day with the mindset of including your loved one across the veil. A really easy one, but it's one that I often forget myself, which I feel stupid about, but it happens. Wake up, look over to where they would be if they're your partner. If not, just say good morning and ask them how they are, whether you hear the answer or not, and then talk about what you want to do today. If you don't hear them with clairaudience, which is basically telepathy, you can develop this by asking questions of them and then waiting for the response. It may take a while. It may even sound like it is your own voice. When I first started communicating with Chris with clairaudience, I had never had it that I knew of. So I decided to ask him to give me a sign verbally. I wanted him to pick the sign that I should look for from him. So I said, okay, please give me a sign that I can look for and see throughout my day. And I heard immediately the phrase purple heart. And I kind of rolled my eyes and almost dismissed it because I'm thinking, that is so vague. You're going to see purple hearts everywhere. I mean, like, if you go on Facebook, hearts are everywhere, you know? But I had heard not to dismiss these things because that's your ego. Your egoic mind, your intellect, should not be in charge of this communication. And if it is, you need to find ways to get more into your right brain, which is your emotional connection to source, the universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And since your person across the veil is now fully integrated into that energy, that is who you're communicating with. So anything that gets you in tune with the flow of the energy of creation and the universe will automatically help you strengthen communication with that particular person across the veil. So I heard the phrase purple heart, and I thought, okay, whatever, I'll go with it. And I probably saw it a few times over the next couple days, but what I really saw was after a couple days, I just happened to notice my cats, which were Chris's cats too, wore Purple Heart name tags. And I remembered that I was sitting in front of a painting with a Purple Heart on it when I found out that he had passed. So I laughed because he loved our cats as much as I do. We're both obsessed with them. And I knew that there was nothing more important that he could have said. There was nothing more relevant. There was nothing more... There was nothing that would have proven his existence more than saying Purple Heart. And my intellect had almost dismissed the whole thing because I thought it was silly. In reality, it made me laugh for the first time since he passed. And later, when I was able to hear him better, he said that when I laughed like that, he knew we were going to be okay because he knew that I was able to receive his communication. I trusted it and I followed up on it. So he knew pretty quickly we had a lot of things to get through, a lot of grief for me, but he knew that we were going to be able to do this because I listened to him and trusted, which is what is required on this journey. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust the universe. These two things are paramount, and there's no way to get around it. If you find that you don't trust this communication, or you don't trust your abilities, you don't trust that what you just heard was real, you're not sure that synchronicity was real, that sign you could explain away in 50 different ways if you wanted to, you can keep doing that, if that's your habit, but you're going to notice it doesn't help. And after a while, hopefully you can realize that you need to do some deep introspection, self-examination, basically shadow work, and get around your issues with doubt of yourself, doubt of your abilities. If you have any doubt that after-death communication is real, you need to deal with that. All these things are going to make or break your communication. I knew that after-death communication was real. I had already taken mediumship classes for 14 months before Chris passed. I didn't know why. I was just suddenly interested. And I found a teacher that convinced me it was real, when I had never been completely convinced before. And now I know, obviously, it was our spirit guides getting me ready for when Chris passed. 14 months later, I immediately knew he would come back if he could, and he immediately did, in a big way. So within 2 days is the first time I remember truly knowing he was here. But then when I think about it, there was a painting that I made about our twin flame journey that was knocked upright on the floor right next to the refrigerator where I would see it first thing in the morning on the day after he passed. So that was my first sign, but of course I said, well, it does feel like a sign. That is too specific. It was a twin flame painting. I have never seen it face up on the floor right where I wouldn't miss it before. But I have cats, things get knocked over, and I asked myself, is this true? So you're going to have a million of those, and you're going to have to get to a point eventually where you realize that they were real. And what Chris told me was that even if they're not all signs, maybe you attribute something to your loved one that really wasn't them. He said it's more dangerous to doubt than to just believe everything. If you doubt everything, you will ruin the connection. Your loved one will be frustrated. I mean, that's not to scare you, but they make a lot of effort to do this. And if we don't notice and pay attention and understand, they could eventually get tired of it or heartbroken over it. They want to communicate with us and we're not getting it and we're doubting, and they do all this effort and then we just blow it off and think that it's just our minds. We really owe it to them to believe them. So Chris told me point blank that it's better to believe everything than to doubt everything. Once in a while, maybe you're wrong, that, that thing you found on the ground with their initials on it wasn't really from them. Who knows? But for the most part, when you start doing this, you're going to feel it in your heart, in your soul, in your body somehow, when these signs and communications are from them. So, in the morning, say good morning to them, talk about your day, ask them questions, and wait for a few minutes in silence for their reply. If you hear something in your head, even if it's a voice, even if it sounds like yourself, write it down, because you'll probably forget. You might think you won't forget, but you should start writing these things down. Write down what you hear. Now, if you get an impression, like a feeling, or if you just know something in your head, like some idea just comes into your head and you don't hear it verbally, it's the same thing. Go ahead and write that down. And see if you find that later in your day, whatever that is starts to show up or makes more sense. A lot of the times I have figured out what's going on with our communication only because I kept an online journal in a journal app. So I had the dates of everything that ever happened to us. I wrote everything down from the beginning. And if I ever need to reference something, or I realize that he does a specific, like extra things on a certain date every year, I'll look up that date and see what did he do last year. And I'll realize that there's some anniversary that we had that I didn't remember, but he did remember. So please write everything down. Get a journaling app. It's really easy. Then you can track. You can put in your activities and things like that and track it. Don't doubt yourself so much. And another activity in the morning, if you have time, is to wake up and immediately do like morning pages, automatic writing, or a brain dump. Those are some of the terms that people use for when you just get out a piece of paper. I've heard that it really should be paper and pens, which is something that I kind of resist because I just usually talk into my phone. But I've heard people say that writing is better. So, do whatever you feel called to do. But here you have no agenda other than writing what comes into your head. If you're going to write about what you just dreamed about, that's fine. If you want to write about what you're thinking about right then, because you got stuff on your mind to do that day, that's fine. If you want to write a letter to your loved one or just a conversation and say, I wonder what do you think about this or that, do that. It doesn't matter. It just gets you out of your left brain. You want to become more and more familiar with how to use the right brain. The right brain is the feminine, associated with the feminine. It's associated with the left side of your body. It's crisscrossed. So the right brain is the more spiritual, soul, feeling-centered, emotional part of you, and it affects the left side. Now, the right brain is associated with the masculine, and the right side of your body, it is associated with the intellect. And most of us in Western culture have been trained to mainly focus on the left, the right brain. The left brain. I had it right the first time. Our intellect is valued, it's rewarded, it is cultivated, and that's almost the only thing that our culture cared about until recently. The spiritual movement, it's been around as long as humans have, but the acceleration in the amount of people that are awakening right now and the amount of interest in awakening, that is coming because there's going to be a shift. Basically, we have been relying on the left side of the brain and the intellect for so long while neglecting the other side of us. It's imbalanced. That is why the world is imbalanced. That is why particularly the USA, where I live, is imbalanced. The masculine and feminine sides of us need to be balanced. Our brains, our bodies, our thoughts, everything. And that is why twin flames, embodying the masculine and the feminine, coming into union, is the most balanced high vibrational energy on the planet, because it is finally the union of one soul in two bodies, but it's still one soul. So it's one soul who achieves this complete fusion and balance of the masculine and the feminine. This is not easy to achieve, so I'm not going to go into that. I wanted this to be a short video about how you can start your day, and it went off on a big tangent, but basically just do a morning brain dump, talk to your loved one, acknowledge them first thing in the morning, and ask them to show you something during the day that's from them. Just, you can ask for something that you want, but I often find that when we put limits on what we want them to do, that's our egos and our minds trying to take over and control the situation. In a way, I think it's good if we relax and let them choose what they want to show us. Like when I asked for a sign and he said Purple Heart. You know, I could have dismissed it. I almost did. It sounded like my own voice. But over time, and it didn't take much time, it started to sound like his voice, exactly like his voice. I could have long conversations with him that sounded just like him. So obviously I don't worry about forgetting what he sounds like because I hear him all the time. So that's just one way to start your day, by including your loved one who you cannot physically see. It's very hard to start your day and just move on with all these things that you have to deal with in the physical realm, and then kind of look back and say like, oh hey, sorry, I didn't mean to not say good morning to you. I mean, I do it all the time. But I think if we get up in the morning and immediately say something to them and give ourselves just 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes to turn off your intellect and go relax. If you know how to meditate for a few minutes. If you have time to do Qigong or yoga, that will also balance and get you into your right brain. Anything you can do where you're not instantly jumping out of bed and going and dealing with all the chaos of your life. Give yourself time to connect with your own inner being and take some breaths, some deep breaths, center yourself, ground yourself to the earth by visualizing roots going down into the earth from your feet or your root chakra where you're sitting. Just take deep breaths, sit in silence, purge your thoughts, and ask your loved one to show you something today that you're going to know is from them, and let them choose it. They are way smarter and funnier than we ever could be. The stuff that Chris does for me is way more hilarious and clever than anything I could have come up with. It's mind-blowing. So they're going to entertain you with how creative they can be if we let them. I hope that made sense. And I'm going to be doing more of these short little videos. As the spirit moves me, these are usually downloaded from Chris. Or actually, you know, we make them together, but that's how it works for me. So let me know if you want to see any more little videos about a certain topic, and we'll try to get on that. Thanks.